The screen door slammed behind him like a gunshot in the still Ohio night, its rusty hinges screaming betrayal louder than any words could. Joseph's boots crunched over the gravel driveway, each step pulling him farther from the yellow glow of the only home he'd ever known, while his father's voice, raw, venom-laced, chased him into the dark. "Don't you dare come back here, you goddamn disgrace." He didn't cry until the taillights of his '98 Ford Taurus swallowed the farmhouse whole, the tears blurring the endless cornfields stretching like accusing fingers under the harvest moon. That was 3 years ago, back in Milford, Ohio. Population 2,847. Give or take a few souls who'd fled for the promise of something bigger. Joseph Harlan had been 22 then, fresh out of community college with a half-baked graphic design degree and a heart full of secrets he'd buried deeper than the coal seams running under Appalachia. Milford wasn't the kind of place that forgave secrets, especially not ones that painted you queer in a town where family values meant Sunday potlucks at the Baptist church and Friday nights cheering the high school football team, the Milford Mavericks, undefeated in spirit if not always on the field. It started with Matthew. God, Matthew. They'd been thick as thieves since kindergarten, trading Pokemon cards under the bleachers and sneaking beers from Joseph's dad's garage during those humid summers that stuck to your skin like regret. Matthew Klein, with his easy grin and quarterback build, was the golden boy, captain of the team, valedictorian runner-up, the kid every parent wished their daughter would bring home. But late at night, when the crickets hummed their indifferent symphony, Matthew would slip through Joseph's window, their whispers turning to touches that felt like salvation in a world that preached damnation. "You're the only one who gets me," Matthew had murmured once, his breath hot against Joseph's neck as they lay tangled in sheets that smelled of cheap laundry detergent and stolen dreams. It was the summer before senior year, fireflies blinking like Morse code outside the sash window. Joseph believed him. Hell, he'd have followed that boy into the mouth of a tornado. They mapped each other's bodies like explorers charting unclaimed land, laughing softly about running away to Chicago or New York, where no one gave a damn who you loved as long as you paid your rent on time. But secrets in Milford had a way of rotting from the inside out. It was homecoming weekend, the air crisp with bonfire smoke and the faint tang of impending frost. Joseph had mustered the courage, fueled by a stolen flask of Jack Daniels, to pull Matthew aside behind the equipment shed after the game. The Mavericks had crushed the rivals from Dayton, 28-14, and the crowd was still roaring as fireworks popped overhead like celebratory gunfire. "We gotta tell people," Joseph said, his voice barely above the bass thump of the after-party playlist drifting from the gym. "I'm tired of hiding, Matt. This is killing me." Matthew's face had gone the color of ash, his blue eyes darting like a cornered animal. "What the hell? Joe, you think this is some fairy tale? My dad's the mayor. For Christ's sake. You want to ruin everything?" The words landed like slaps, but it was the shove hard, into the corrugated metal wall, that knocked the wind out of Joseph. Before he could recover, Matthew was gone, melting into the throng of cheerleaders and jocks like he'd never been there at all. By Monday, the whispers had turned to shouts. Someone Joseph never knew who had seen them, or heard them, or invented the whole damn thing. But Matthew, he denied it all, louder than anyone. In the cafeteria, with the fluorescent lights buzzing like judgmental hornets, he slammed his tray down in front of Joseph and spat. "I don't know what kind of sick shit you're spreading, Harlan, but keep my name out of your mouth. You perv." The room went silent, then erupted in laughter that clawed at Joseph's throat. He spent the rest of the day in the bathroom stall, retching up his lunch and the last shreds of his dignity. His parents found out that night. Dad, a burly line worker at the auto plant with hands calloused from years of welding dreams into steel frames, came home early from his shift at the VFW hall. Mom, ever the peacemaker with her apron stained from PDA bake sales, tried to bridge the gap with tears and pleas. But Dad's rage was a force of nature, biblical in its fury. "This ain't how we raised you," he bellowed, veins bulging in his neck like rivers about to flood. "You're no son of mine if you're one of those." The word hung unspoken, but it sliced deeper than any knife. Joseph packed a duffel in the dim light of his bedroom. Posters of indie bands and faded Polaroids of him and Matthew curling at the edges like forgotten promises. He left a note on the kitchen table. "I'm sorry. I love you. Don't look for me," and hit the highway before dawn. The radio tuned low to some classic rock station crooning Springsteen's Thunder Road, the boss's gravelly voice a lifeline in the rearview. New York City hit him like a freight train wrapped in neon and attitude. The Greyhound dropped him at Port Authority, the air thick with exhaust and the sizzle of street-cart hot dogs. He crashed on a cousin's lumpy couch in Astoria, Queens, trading shifts at a coffee shop for a floor spot and lukewarm takeout. The city was a beast, merciless, intoxicating, its pulse syncing with the frantic beat of Joseph's heart. Days blurred into nights of pounding pavement, resume in hand, dodging tourists on the subway and nursing blisters from boots that weren't made for concrete jungles. His first real break came 6 months in, at a dive bar in the East Village called the Rusty Nail. It was open mic night, the kind where hopefuls with guitars and grudges poured their souls into microphones that smelled like stale beer. Joseph, emboldened by $2 drafts, signed up on a whim, reciting a poem he'd scribbled in his Moleskine about cornfields and cracked hearts. The crowd, a mix of pierced punks and weary artists, clapped politely, but one guy lingered after, clapping Joseph on the back with a grin that lit up the dim room. "Hey, that was raw. Name's Alex. You got a portfolio? I'm scouting for this little design firm up in Chelsea." Alex Rivera, 25, with ink-sleeved arms and a laugh that could disarm a bomb, became Joseph's anchor. They bonded over late-night ramen and critiques of bad indie films, Alex's Puerto Rican fire tempering Joseph's Midwestern reserve. It wasn't love at first sight, not the fireworks kind, anyway, but it was steady, like the reliable rumble of the 7 train. Alex got him the gig at Pixel Forge, a boutique agency specializing in queer-friendly branding, where Joseph finally started to feel like he belonged. But Milford haunted him. Late at night, when the city that never sleeps finally dozed, Joseph's phone would light up with a blocked number, voicemails he deleted without listening, texts from old numbers pleading, "We miss you," or "Come home, son." He ignored them all, building walls higher than the skyline, until the call that cracked them wide open. It was a Tuesday in July, the kind of sticky heat that turned the sidewalks into griddles. Joseph's phone buzzed during a client meeting, Mom's name flashing like a warning flare. He stepped into the hallway, heart hammering. "Joseph, baby, it's bad. Your father's had a stroke. Doctors say. They say he might not make it through the week." Her voice broke on the words, a sob echoing the one he'd swallowed 3 years ago. He booked the flight that night, the Amtrak to Penn Station feeling like a conveyor belt to purgatory. Alex hugged him tight at the gate, whispering, "You've got this. And I'm here when you get back." But as the plane lifted off, banking over the glittering sprawl of Manhattan, Joseph wondered if back meant New York anymore, or if the pull of those cornfields was stronger than he'd admitted. The bus from Columbus to Milford rattled like Joseph's nerves, the vinyl seats sticking to his thighs in the late summer humidity. 3 years, and the landscape hadn't changed. Billboards hawking John Deere tractors, faded campaign signs for local yokels still peeling from 22 elections, the Ohio River winking slyly as it curved toward Cincinnati. Joseph stared out the smudged window, his reflection ghosting over fields of soybeans swaying like a green sea. He'd cut his hair short, traded flannels for slim-fit button-downs, but the boy who'd fled in tears stared back, wider eyes, sharper jaw, but the same hollow ache. Milford welcomed him with the same indifferent sprawl, the single stoplight at Main and Elm, where teenagers in Letterman jackets loitered like they owned time itself, the diner with its neon open 24/7 sign flickering like a dying heartbeat, the grain elevator looming over it all, a concrete sentinel to the town's unyielding rhythm. He hitched his backpack higher and walked the 3 miles to the farmhouse, gravel biting through his sneakers, each step dredging up memories he'd buried under skyscrapers and subway symphonies. The Harlan place hadn't fared well. The white clapboard siding peeled like old skin, the porch swing creaking empty in the breeze. Joseph's sister, Becca, spotted him first from the kitchen window, her face rounder now, freckles faded, pressing against the glass before she burst out the screen door. "Joe? Oh God. Joe!" She threw her arms around him, 5 months pregnant and smelling of baby powder and fresh-baked cornbread. 24 now, married to her high school sweetheart, the town pharmacist's son. She'd been the only one to write after he left, letters full of, "I love you no matter what," that he'd read until the paper wore thin. "Mom inside?" he asked, voice rough as the driveway. She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Dad's at the hospital in Columbus. Stable, but it's touch and go. He asked for you yesterday. Called your name." The words landed like stones in his gut. Joseph followed her inside, the house a time capsule of faded glory. Mom's cross-stitched "Home Sweet Home" on the wall, Dad's collection of John Wayne VHS tapes gathering dust on the TV stand. Mom looked smaller, her once vibrant red hair streaked gray and pulled into a hasty bun. She froze in the doorway to the living room, flour-dusted hands clutching a dish rag like a lifeline. "Joseph." It wasn't a question, just a breath, heavy with 3 years of unspoken grief. He crossed the linoleum in 3 strides, pulling her into a hug that smelled of vanilla and defeat. "I'm here, Ma. I'm sorry it took so long." They cried then, the kind of ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs that left you hollowed out and strangely clean. Over weak coffee at the Formica table, she filled in the blanks. Dad's blood pressure, the plant layoffs that hit like a recession bomb, Becca's shotgun wedding after a positive test strip. "He misses you, Joey. Says things in his sleep about that night. Regrets it all." Joseph nodded, throat tight, but the scars ran deep. "What about everyone else?" Mom's eyes dropped to her mug. "Town's the same. Matthew's back from college, got his business degree from OSU. Works at the bank now. Engaged to Sarah Jenkins. Nice girl." The name hit like a sucker punch. Matthew. Engaged. Joseph's mind reeled, flashing to stolen kisses in the bed of that old pickup, promises whispered under star-pricked skies. "Good for him," he managed, voice steady as a lie. But inside, something twisted, anger, sure, but laced with a pity that tasted like bile. He spent the afternoon at Dad's bedside in Columbus, the hospital a sterile maze of beeps and bleach. Tom Harlan lay pale against starched sheets, tubes snaking from his arm like accusatory vines, his once broad frame shrunken to bones and regret. Joseph's entrance stirred him, eyelids fluttering open to fix on his son with watery blue eyes, the same shade as Joseph's own. "Joey boy," the words rasped, oxygen mask fogging with each breath. "You came." "Yeah, Dad." "Wouldn't miss it." He pulled up a vinyl chair, the squeak echoing their fractured silence. They talked in fits and starts about the weather, the Reds' losing streak, Becca's nursery plans. Then, haltingly, Dad reached for his hand. "I was wrong. Scared. You know, this town. It chews up different. But you're my blood. Always will be." Tears pricked Joseph's eyes, hot and unwelcome. Forgiveness wasn't a light switch. It was a slow thaw. "I know, Dad. Water under the bridge. Lies, maybe, but necessary ones." They held like that until visiting hours ended, Joseph's palm warm from the grip that said more than words ever could. Back in Milford that evening, the town closed in like a fist. He walked to the diner for a burger, the bell above the door jingling like a warning. Faces turned, old teachers with pity lines etched deeper, former classmates with awkward waves. And then, at the counter nursing a Coke, Matthew. Taller now, suit jacket slung over the stool, gold watch glinting under the fluorescent hum. His hair, once shaggy, was buzzed neat. A diamond sparkled on his left hand like a taunt. "Joseph!" Matthew's voice cracked the air, stool scraping as he stood. Close. The changes were stark. Crow's feet from forced smiles, a paunch straining his belt. But those eyes, damn them, still held the boy who'd made Joseph's world spin. "Hey, Matt." Neutral, like greeting a distant cousin at a funeral. Joseph's pulse thrummed, betraying him. "You look good. City life treating you right. Can't complain." "You," a nod to the ring. "Congrats." Matthew's gaze dropped, fingers twisting the straw. "Yeah. Sarah's great. Weddings in spring. A beat, heavy as humidity. Look, about back then. I was a coward. Scared shitless. Didn't know how to save it." Joseph's voice was steel, sharper than he'd intended. "Water under the bridge, right? Like my old man says." He grabbed his check and bolted, the bell mocking his exit. Outside, the sunset bled orange across the fields, and Joseph leaned against the brick wall, breath coming in gasps. Why did it still hurt? Why did Matthew's regret feel like salt in a wound he'd thought scarred over? The week blurred into a rhythm of hospital vigils and home-cooked meals, Becca's laughter a balm against the tension. Mom fussed over him like he'd never left, piling his plate with meatloaf and green beans from the garden. Dad rallied enough for a supervised walk in the hospital garden, shuffling along with a cane, grumbling about damn Jell-O while Joseph pushed the wheelchair. It was fragile, this mending, cracks visible in every glance, every pause, but it was progress. Real, Midwestern progress, slow as molasses, stubborn as oak. Then came the letter, tucked in Dad's effects when Joseph cleared out the bedside table. A crisp envelope, postmarked New York, addressed to Tom Harlan, Yescu in elegant script. Joseph's fingers trembled as he slid it open, the paper crackling like dry leaves. "Dear Mr. Harlan, I hope this finds you well. My name is Elias Klein, Matthew's uncle, late of Milford. I'm writing on behalf of my nephew, who lacks the courage I once had. 3 years ago, you lost a son to fear and folly. I lost a brother to the same. Robert, Matthew's father, your mayor was my partner, not my blood. We loved in shadows, as men like us did then. When Robert died in that car wreck '89, I left town to spare the boy the truth. But secrets kill slower than lies. Tell Joseph, if you see him, Matthew carries the weight because he knows now. He knows what it cost us all. Forgiveness isn't for the forgiven, it's for the living. Yours in quiet truth, Elias. Joseph's knees buckled, the letter fluttering to the linoleum like a fallen flag. Uncle, partner, the pieces slammed together. Mayor Klein's widower status, the hushed whispers about Elias skipping town after the funeral. Matthew's father gay. Hiding, just like Dad had tried to force Joseph to do. He didn't cry. Not then. But as he folded the letter into his pocket, the weight of it burned, a truth too big for Milford's narrow streets, a bomb ticking toward homecoming. That night, sleep evaded him, the ceiling fan whirring like accusatory whispers. By dawn, he'd made the call to Alex, voice steady over the crackle of the line. I need you here. Complicated. Alex arrived 2 days later, stepping off the bus in Ray-Bans and a Mets cap, duffel slung over one shoulder like he owned the place. He enveloped Joseph in a hug that smelled of airport pretzels and unwavering love, murmuring, "Whatever this is, we face it together." They walked hand in hand to the diner, defiant, deliberate, drawing stares that prickled like nettles. Becca hooped when she saw them, pulling Alex into a bear hug. Mom smiled tentatively, setting an extra plate. Even Dad, home now on hospice care, grunted approval from his recliner. About time we had some city polish around here. But Matthew? He watched from across the street. Shadow in the bank doorway, eyes haunted by ghosts neither of them could outrun. Alex fit into Milford like a square peg in a round hole, but damn if he didn't try. With his quick wit and endless stories of bodega cats and Broadway buskers, he charmed the nurses at the hospital and even got Dad chuckling over tales of a disastrous pride float that involved glitter and a rogue pigeon. "You New Yorkers," Dad wheezed, oxygen tank hissing softly, always one-upping the drama. Joseph watched them, heart swelling at the sight. Alex's hand on Dad's shoulder, steady as an anchor. It was more than he dared hope for, this fragile bridge over the chasm of the past. Evenings, they'd pile into Becca's minivan for drives along the river, windows down to let the cicadas serenade them. Alex would crank the radio to some indie playlist, Pavement or The National, while Becca belted out off-key harmonies, her belly bumping the dash. Joseph stole glances at Alex, marveling at how this man, tattooed, unapologetic, had become his North Star. Their love wasn't the fevered rush of youth. It was deeper, forged in late-night confessions and shared grocery lists, the kind that whispered forever without needing fireworks. But Matthew's shadow loomed, lengthening with each passing day. Joseph spotted him everywhere, pumping gas at the Shell station, his fiancée Sarah on his arm, her laughter brittle as autumn leaves, coaching peewee football at the rec center, barking orders with a whistle that echoed his old quarterback bark. Once, at the farmer's market, stalls groaning under pumpkins and apple cider donuts, Matthew cornered him by the honey stand, voice low and urgent. Joe, wait, that letter Elias sent it, didn't he? I didn't know until last year. That he and Uncle Eli. He trailed off, glancing at Sarah haggling over jars a few feet away. It wrecked me. That's why I pushed you away. I saw myself in you, in us, and it terrified me. Thought if I buried it deep enough, it'd stay dead. Joseph's grip tightened on the paper sack of tomatoes, juice seeping through like blood. You didn't just push, Matt. You shoved me into hell. Outed me to save your own skin. And now, you're playing house like nothing happened. Matthew's face crumpled, the golden boy facade cracking. I hate myself for it. Every damn day. Sarah. It's safe. Expected. But it's not real. Not like. He stopped, eyes flicking to Joseph's hand, where Alex's class ring glinted like a shield. You're happy. That's what matters. Is it? Joseph stepped closer, voice a whisper shout. Or are you just too chicken shit to live your truth? He walked away then, heart pounding, the market's bustle swallowing Matthew's unanswered plea. But the encounter lingered, a splinter under the skin, infecting everything. That night, over takeout pizza in Joseph's old room, posters yellowed, bed frame still creaking, Alex noticed the distance. Talk to me, babe. This place is eating you alive. Joseph spilled it all, the hookups with Matthew, the betrayal, the letter's revelation. Alex listened, head tilted, no judgment in his dark eyes, just that quiet strength that made Joseph feel seen. Sounds like unfinished business, Alex said finally, pulling him close. You gonna let it fester? Or blow it up? The question hung as Dad weakened, days bleeding into a hospice vigil. The farmhouse filled with the scent of lilies from well-wishers. Neighbors who'd once whispered now murmuring prayers, and Joseph's role shifted to caretaker. Adjusting pillows, spooning broth, holding hands calloused from a lifetime of labor. In those quiet hours, Dad unburdened himself, stories tumbling out like loose change. Wasn't always this way, son. Back in Nam, I had a buddy, Ricky. We kept each other warm in the jungles. Letters home called him a brother, but it was more. Came back, married your mom 'cause that's what you did. Buried it all. Dad's eyes, milky with pain meds, searched Joseph's. Seeing you leave cracked me open. Realized I'd done the same to you. Joseph squeezed his hand, tears blurring the foredrip. It's okay, Dad. We're here now, but here was fracturing. Becca's water broke 2 weeks early, a midnight rush to the hospital amid contractions and chaos. Little Emma arrived at 3:17 a.m., 7 pounds of red-faced fury, her cry piercing the delivery room like a declaration of war on silence. Joseph held her first, tiny fist curling around his finger, and something inside him, walled off since that gravel driveway, began to melt. Alex beamed from the corner, snapping Polaroids, future troublemaker, this one. Dad passed 3 days later, in the hush of dawn, Mom dozing in the chair beside him. Joseph's name was the last word on his lips, a benediction softer than any sermon. The funeral was a blur of casseroles and condolences, the Baptist church packed with faces from Joseph's youth, hypocrites in pressed suits, offering handshakes that felt like condolences for his soul. Pastor Wilkins droned about eternal rest and God's plan, but Joseph tuned it out, focusing on the stained glass light fracturing across the pews like shattered rainbows. Afterward, At the graveside, under a sky heavy with unshed rain, Matthew approached. Solo this time, suit rumpled, eyes red-rimmed. "I'm sorry, Joe. For everything. Your dad. He was a good man. Yeah. He was." Joseph's voice was even, but the letter burned in his pocket like a live coal. Alex stood sentinel a few feet away, chatting with Becca, but his glance said, "I've got you." Matthew shifted, boots scuffing the astroturf. "That truth Elias wrote about is mine too. I came out to Sarah last month. Called off the wedding. Town's buzzing like a kicked hive. Joseph's breath caught, the world tilting. Why tell me? Because you deserve to know. And because I owe you the ending I stole." Matthew's hand hovered, then dropped. "Be happy, Joe. You earned it." He walked away, silhouette shrinking against the horizon, and Joseph exhaled, a gust carrying 3 years of poison. Alex slipped beside him, arm around his waist. "You good, better," and he was. The truth wasn't a bomb. It was a key, unlocking doors he'd bolted shut. But Milford had one last twist. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the fields gold, Mom called Joseph to the attic, Dad's old domain, cluttered with boxes of war relics and forgotten tools. "He left this for you," she said, handing over a battered shoebox tied with twine. Inside, letters, yellowed and brittle, postmarked from Elias Klein to Tom Harlan, spanning decades. Love notes disguised as buddy updates, photos of 2 young soldiers grinning in fatigues, arms slung casual but eyes speaking volumes. The final one, dated a week before Dad's stroke. "Brother, tell our boy. Let him live free. We couldn't, don't let him pay our price." Joseph sat amid the dust motes, reading by flashlight as twilight bled into night. Mom joined him, her presence a quiet anchor. "Your father loved deeply, Joey. Just didn't know how to say it." By the time he descended, resolve hardened like steel in a forge. Milford had taken his tears, but it wouldn't claim his truth. Not anymore. The decision crystallized over midnight coffee, the farmhouse kitchen bathed in the fridge's cold glow. Alex across from him, fingers laced with Joseph's, steam curling from mugs like question marks. "We stay," Joseph said, the words tasting of finality. "Not forever, God. No, but long enough to rebuild. Mom needs us. Becca too. And this place. It deserves a fighting chance." Alex's brow arched, that teasing spark in his eyes. "You, mister. Big city. Playing white knight in corn country? Bold move. Harlan." But his squeeze said yes. The kind of yes that built empires from borrowed couches. They dove in headfirst. Joseph leveraged his Pixelforge contacts for remote gigs, branding the local co-op's farm-to-table line, sprucing up the Chamber of Commerce site with sleek sliders and queer-inclusive stock photos that made the old guard clutch pearls. Alex, ever the hustler, sweet-talked the realtor into subletting a vacant storefront downtown, turning it into Astoria East, a pop-up coffee shop blending NYC edge with Midwest heart, matcha lattes alongside Buckeye brownies, pride flags fluttering beside American ones. Word spread like wildfire through Milford's tinder-dry gossip mill. First came the skeptics, truckers nursing beers at the VFW, muttering about that fag bar ruining Main Street. Then the curious, Becca's playgroup moms, drawn by Instagram reels of Alex's foam art, high school kids, sneaking in after curfew for the open mic nights where Joseph emceed with poems that peeled back small-town skins. Revenue trickled, then flowed, enough for a tiny apartment above the shop, exposed brick and all, where Joseph's laughter echoed off walls that didn't judge. Matthew kept his distance at first, a ghost in the periphery, nods at the post office, brief waves from his teller's window at the bank. But the town watched, waiting for sparks. They came at the Harvest Festival, under strings of Edison bulbs swaying in the October chill. Milford's annual bash, hayrides, caramel apples, a dunk tank for the fire chief, drew crowds from 3 counties, the air thick with funnel cake grease and bluegrass twang from the stage. Joseph manned the booth for Astoria East, slinging pumpkin spice cold brews while Alex charmed the line with bar tricks. Then Matthew appeared, paper plate of ribs in hand, Sarah nowhere in sight. "Heard this was the spot," he said, sliding a 5 across the folding table. "Make it strong." "Rough week," Joseph poured, the steam veiling his face. "Heard you started that scholarship fund. For queer kids." Out of Dad's name, Matthew shrugged, but pride flickered in his eyes. "Figured it was time. Elias helped, flew in last month. Told me everything. About him and your old man." The admission hung, heavy as the fog rolling off the river. Joseph capped the cup, fingers brushing Matthew's. A spark, accidental but electric. "You gonna stick around? Or run again?" "Won't run." "Not anymore." Matthew's gaze held, raw and searching. "But I'm not here to complicate things. Just wanted you to know I'm rooting for you. Both of you." He melted into the crowd, leaving Joseph adrift in the throng. Alex sidled up, eyebrow cocked. "Ex-drama? Water under the bridge." Joseph pulled him close, kissing his temple amid the oblivious revelers. "All good, but good was relative. Winter clamped down like a vice, snow blanketing Milford in hush. Holidays brought ghosts. Thanksgiving at the farmhouse. Mom's turkey drier than Dad's old jokes. Toasts raised to absent chairs. Christmas. They strung lights on the shop's awning. Alex teaching Joseph to make tamales from his abuela's recipe. Dowie masa and pork simmering, filling the air with spice that chased away the chill. Then the backlash hit. Spray paint on the shop window one frosty dawn. "God hates fags," in dripping red, the letters jagged as hate itself. Joseph found it while unlocking, stomach churning, Alex's arm around him as they scrubbed it clean before opening. The sheriff, Dad's old bowling buddy, took statements with a sigh, muttering about kids these days, but whispers followed: boycotts at church, anonymous calls to the chamber demanding they clean up Main Street. It peaked at the town hall meeting, fluorescent buzz amplifying every grievance. Councilman Hargrove, red-faced and Bible-thumping, railed from the podium. "This ain't New York. We got families, values, that coffee joint's turning our boys soft." Next thing, parades down Elm, murmurs rippled, heads nodding like wheat in wind. Joseph stood, heart slamming, Alex's hand a secret anchor at his back. "With all due respect, Councilman, values aren't about hate. They're about community. My dads, both of them, built this town with sweat and silence. Tom Harlan welded half the plant's line. Elias Klein funded the library wing. They loved men, yeah, but they loved Milford more. If that's not values, what is?" The room stilled, his words landing like stones in a pond. Eyes widened, some in shock, others in dawning light. Mom, in the third row, dabbed tears. Becca gripped her husband's hand. And Matthew? From the back. He rose, voice steady. Joseph's right. My dad, Mayor Klein, he and Elias. They were partners. I hid it, same as some of you. But hiding kills. Let's build instead. Applause started sparse, then swelled, fists pounding folding chairs, whoops cutting the tension. Hargrove sputtered, adjourned in defeat. Outside, under street lamps haloed by snow, townsfolk clapped Joseph on the back. Sorry about the paint, son. Come for Pie Sunday. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, no overnight halos, but it was momentum, a crack in the dam. Back home, Alex pulled Joseph into bed, their bodies a tangle of relief and heat. You're a force, Harlan. My hero in flannel. Joseph laughed, tracing the tattoos on Alex's chest. Couldn't do it without you. Spring thawed the fields and the fractures. Emma took her first steps in the shop, giggling as Alex bounced her on his knee. Mom started dating widow support group Magic, a quiet widower from the library. Joseph and Alex talked rings, not in whispers but plans. A courthouse elopement, then a backyard bash with tamales and cornbread. But truths have aftershocks. One muggy June evening, as fireflies reclaimed the yard, Matthew knocked on the farmhouse door. Solo, shirt untucked, a bottle of bourbon in hand, Dad's favorite. Can we talk? For real this time. Joseph hesitated, then nodded, leading him to the porch swing. Mom was at bingo, Alex at a supplier run. The bourbon poured smooth, warming the chill of unresolved ghosts. I told Sarah everything, Matthew started, rocking the swing slow. Broke it off clean. Moved into Elias's old place, fixing it up. Therapy, too. Turns out, carrying Dad's secret warped me worse than I thought. Joseph sipped, the burn steadying him. Why now? Why tell me? Because closure's bullshit without honesty. I loved you, Joe. Still do. In a way, the kid version of us. But I see you now. With Alex. It's right. You're free. The admission unlocked something, a valve releasing pressure built over years. They talked till stars wheeled overhead. Regrets unpacked like old luggage. Laughs over shared stupidities. Like the time they TP'd the principal's oak. No sparks, just embers cooling to ash. As Matthew left, silhouette fading down the drive, Joseph called after, that scholarship? Name it for both of them. Tom and Robert. Partners in every sense. Matthew turned, grin ghosting his face. Done. Summer swelled Milford like a ripening peach. Lazy days bleeding into barbecues, the river lazy with tubers and laughter. Astoria East thrived, its patio buzzing with locals nursing IPAs and iced teas, rainbow pinwheels spinning lazy defiance in the breeze. Joseph designed the menus, infusing them with nods to home, Harlan Harvest Latte, a cinnamon-spiked nod to Mom's pies, Klein Courage Cappuccino, bold and unapologetic. The town grumbled at first. Old habits die hard, but curiosity won. Lines forming longer than at the county fair. Alex proposed on the 4th of July. Fireworks bursting over the fairgrounds like celestial applause. They'd snuck away from the crowd, finding a quiet spot by the Ferris wheel's shadow. The air sweet with cotton candy and gunpowder. He dropped to one knee on the trampled grass, ring glinting in his palm, a simple band etched with subway lines, a map of their journey. Joseph Harlan, you left tears behind but found your way back stronger. Marry me? Let's make this crazy life official. Joseph's yes was a sob laugh, pulling Alex up into a kiss that tasted of freedom and funnel cake. They told no one till dawn, waking Mom with mimosas and Becca with squeals that scattered Emma's blocks. The engagement party was a hybrid affair. Tamales from Alex's family recipe book, shipped from the Bronx, cornbread from Mom's oven, speeches slurred with joy under strings of chili peppers and corn husks. Word reached Elias via Matthew's weekly calls, the uncle descending like a benevolent specter, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, arriving by train with a valise of stories and a check for the scholarship fund. He and Mom hit it off over porch rockers, trading tales of lost loves and quiet strengths. Tom was a rock, Elias said one evening, as cicadas chorused. Stubborn as hell, but he loved fierce. Joseph nodded, beer sweating in his hand. Learned that the hard way. The wedding planning unfolded like a community quilt, stitches of compromise and color. No grand cathedral. Instead, the old Harlan barn, cleared of hay bales and strung with lights. Guests, 100 strong, from Alex's queer chosen family bussed in from the city to Milford's reformed holdouts. Becca as best woman, her vows to Joseph a tearjerker. You showed us love isn't a four-letter word, it's a revolution. Matthew stood as groomsman, his presence a quiet testament. No awkwardness, just mutual respect forged in fire. He pulled Joseph aside pre-ceremony, adjusting his boutonniere with steady hands. Proud of you, man. It's the truth we all needed. The ceremony was magic. Alex in a linen suit, Joseph in vintage denim, vows exchanged under a floral arch woven with wild Ohio asters. I promise to fight your ghosts, Alex said, voice cracking, and dance in your light. Rings slid on, sealing promises. The kiss drew cheers that shook the rafters, confetti raining like blessings. But truths, once loosed, demand reckoning. A week after, honeymoon deferred for harvest, Joseph found Mom in the attic again, poring over Elias's letters with a magnifying glass, her face pale as milk. Joey, sit. There's more. The more was a codicil to Dad's will, tucked in the shoebox's false bottom. A yellow deed to 5 acres bordering the Klein property, signed over in '92 but never recorded. For the boys, Dad had scrawled in the margin. When they're ready. Elias confirmed it over coffee. A secret haven, plotted in whispers during Robert's mayoral runs. A cabin site where Tom and Elias had stolen weekends, away from prying eyes. No one was ready, Mom said, tears tracing laugh lines. Your father held it close, thinking it'd protect you. But after the stroke, he told me, wanted you to have it. Build something new. Joseph's mind raced, visions of a retreat, not for hiding, but healing, cabins for queer youth, workshops on coming out in corn country, a bridge between worlds. He and Alex broke ground that fall, axes biting earth under autumn sun, Matthew swinging a hammer beside them. Partners in every sense, he quipped, sweat beading his brow, and they laughed, the clean, forward kind. Winter brought the first guests, a runaway from Dayton, eyes wide with fear, a college kid from Cleveland, sketching logos for the center. Joseph guided them through hikes and heart-to-hearts, Alex cooking communal meals that fed body and soul. Mom volunteered as den mother, her stories a bomb. Becca brought Emma for auntie lessons in resilience. One stormy April night, As thunder rolled like judgment deferred, Joseph and Alex lay in their cabin, timbers fresh hewn, bed piled with quilts from Mom's hope chest. Rain drummed the tin roof, a lullaby of renewal. "We did it," Alex murmured, head on Joseph's chest. Turned tears to truth. Joseph kissed his temple, window framing lightning-veined skies. "And no one's running anymore." Milford changed slow, as it must. Boycotts faded to acceptance, graffiti to murals of rainbows on the shop wall. The scholarship bloomed. 5 kids that first year, off to OSU and beyond, letters home brimming with gratitude. Matthew found love in a teacher from Toledo, their pride float leading the next festival parade. Matthew waving from a convertible, free at last. Joseph visited Dad's grave monthly, wildflowers in hand, updates whispered to the wind. "We're good, old man. Real good." Forgiveness wasn't erasure. It was integration, scars mapping a stronger skin. In the end, the truth no one was ready for wasn't destruction. It was dawn. A light spilling over fields once shadowed, warming a town that learned, haltingly, to love without limits. Joseph Harlan hadn't just returned. He'd remade home, one defiant heartbeat at a time. And under those same stars that had witnessed his flight, he slept sound, Alex's breath a steady rhythm beside him. Home not a place, but a promise kept.